Hey everybody, my name is Henry Stewart, and today I will be presenting on the benefits and risks of exercise for parents. So what is physical activity and exercise? According to Osmek's definition for physical activity and exercise, physical activity is any bodily movement produced by contracting skeletal muscles that result in an increase in caloric requirements over resting expenditure. Exercise is defined as a type of physical activity consisting of planned structures and repetitive bodily movements done to improve physical fitness. And this is all coming from the ASMM guideline textbook. So why physical activity and exercise matters as a parent? Parenting brings physical and mental straining, whether it's from work, the kids, just life in general. It can create stress, anxiety, and depression, which physical activity can reduce. And this is by reducing the cortisol levels that create those feelings. It also reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and illnesses. It can improve bone strength, energy levels, stress management, and just overall quality of life. And parents who are active themselves tend to also raise active adolescents. So what does physical activity look like as a parent? When it comes to aerobic training, walking of any kind, running, cycling, fitness classes, and even hobbies like tennis, pickleball, hiking. Just really anything to get you off the couch, get your body moving. You really want to parents typically tend to want to do something that's fun because they're dealing with their work, their kids. So physical activity can be fun. But for resistance training, anything like body weight exercises at home, weightlifting at gym, even resistance bands. And then lifestyle, yard work, mowing the lawn, digging roots up. That can raise your heart rate and be considered physical activity. Playing with the kids and house tasks. So what are the recommended physical activity guidelines? According to the ASCM guidelines for adults, aerobic training is 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity, or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity. And later on in the PowerPoint, we will go over what the intensity levels mean. But for resistance training, it's 2 to 3 times per week, and making sure to include all major muscle groups. So like I said, we're going to go over intensity and how to really understand what moderate and vigorous intensity levels are. So for moderate, brisk walking, biking under 10 miles per hour, or even mowing a lawn are some examples that could be considered moderate intensity. For vigorous, it could be running, sprinting, fast cycling, or even a HIIT workout. So what are the benefits of aerobic versus resistance physical activity? Aerobic, the improvements in cardiovascular health are dramatic. It also reduces stress and anxiety, and it can be a way to manage your weight, and it also improves sleep. When it comes to resistance, improvements in muscular strength, reduces back straining and age-related muscle loss. It also improves bone health. So both are very beneficial, and the recommendation is to include both aerobic and resistance training in everyday life. So what is the dose-response relationship related to physical activity and parents? More physical activity equals greater health benefits. The more you become active, the more you're gonna get those benefits. And then consistency is more beneficial than intensity. So not necessarily going into the gym and putting up 315 pounds on bench press and having that risk of injury very high, you'd want to do something more like starting off going to the gym, doing a push-up set, something that's not going to really have such a high risk factor when it comes to injury. Also, any movement is better than zero movement. So if it comes to, whether I'm going to sit here and watch a movie or I'm going to go take my dog on a walk, taking that dog on a walk, even if you have 10 minutes to do so, is better than just sitting down and doing nothing. Yes. So, risk involved with physical activity and parents. Of course, getting into physical activity, you're going to have soreness. That just comes along with your body becoming stronger. And some other risks are overuse injuries. If you're really working on one muscle group and you tend to not do anything else than that muscle group, there is a likelihood of having an overuse injury. And then exercise-related cardiac events. This can be avoided if you go to a medical professional and get a screening, or get a clearing for your whatever kind of physical activity you want to do. And then joint pain, that just comes along with getting older and our sedentary lifestyles. Create just a it just creates a not great situation. And then, of course, returning too hard after a sedentary lifestyle. You want to once you start after a long time of not doing any physical activity, you want to ease into your workouts. And that is something I've had to learn. I've actually been tasked with creating a plan for my parents, because they are wanting to get back into physical activity, and I really had to make sure not to go too much overboard in the first couple of weeks, just so they wouldn't have those overuse injuries or injuries from going too hard too fast. So how can we reduce risk by proper safety? Of course, like I said, what I use, slowing progress. If returning after sedentary lifestyle, then proper technique is very important. It creates good habits, and that is how you limit the risk of injury. And then, of course, warm up and cool down properly. It's essential to warm up, stretch, get your heart rate up before doing any kind of physical activity. And then get clearance from, like I said, a medical professional if returning to physical activity after injury or other medical issues. And then simply listen to your body. Your body will tell you if something's wrong, if you're doing too much, if you're not doing enough. The body is a very, very smart part of our lives, and it is important to listen to your body. So what are some tips for parents? Obviously, consistency. Like I said, I helped my parents out with a plan, and one of the main points of emphasis I put on there was to just be consistent, because most parents get caught up in work or have distractions that they think they don't have enough time to go do any kind of physical activity, when in reality they are just not consistent with what they're doing. And then something that can help that is breaking exercises day by day into short sessions. And then, of course, if you can exercise at your house, it saves you a trip, it saves time, but not everyone can do that. So that is only limited. That can be limited. And then optimize time to prioritize personal health. That is very important. Parents are increasingly not prioritizing their own personal health, which, they care for their kids and they prioritize their health, but they lose sight of their own health, and this can be detrimental in the long term. And then, of course, find joy and peacefulness through physical activity. It can be fun. It can be a way to socialize. It can be a distraction from day-to-day life. And most people tend to truly fall in love with what they're doing, fall in love with physical activity, and it can be fun. So in conclusion, the benefits of regular physical activity and exercise for parents are great. Including both aerobic and resistance is crucial. Of course, use proper safety and protocols to limit the risks that come along with physical activity. And then physical activity benefits the entire family. If I see my dad when I saw my dad when I was young running a marathon, it made me want to go out and run. Your kids look up to the parents, and it is important to be a good role model and show them that physical activity is very important when it comes to being healthy and seeking those benefits from physical activity. Here are my resources. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.